Good evening to those bored enough to watch. The previous Roblox analysis video is quite some time ago, and while it's partially due to the fact that the previous one really didn't do well in terms of analytics, it was mostly due to the fact that I couldn't necessarily record a lot of the footage I'd initially wanted for the Roblox games I wanted to cover. Mostly due to choppy footage, and when I could record footage for some of them, I found out that I really didn't have a lot to say about them, if any at all. I may come back to these ideas later in due time, but that is a different conversation for a different time. Roblox is a game that has a lot of history in terms of its games and its users. There are many amazing games made by many amazing developers, but unfortunately due to a lot of circumstances and reasons, being a developer on the vast platform that is Roblox can be demanding at times. The constant updates needed to maintain your game, trying to keep all of the code for your games intact and prevent them from becoming outdated, as well as trying to ensure new builds are being released with each update to ensure that the stability is maintained within your game. To put it simply, being a Roblox developer is no easy task, just as it is with being a developer in general. You create memories with video games, both while playing them as well as making them. For a lot of the games on Roblox, I'm a part of the former. I played a lot of Roblox games when I was young and have fond memories of them, both when they cross my mind and when I'm returning for the occasional revisit. The games I used to play on Roblox, whether dated or maintained, are ones I enjoyed and in some cases continue to enjoy a lot. With that, a game I'd like to discuss today in this video is one by the name of Phantom Forces, created on the 31st of August in 2015 by StyLis Studios. This game is one that, while I know I'm not necessarily very good at it, it's one that I still enjoy from time to time whenever I do decide to return to visit it. Whether that's because I want to take a trip down to memory lane or because I want to kill time. I think that while this game is one that I'm not really the best at, it's still an enjoyable experience after all these years of playing it. I've had gaps in time where I stopped playing this game due to things like being busy on the sort, but each time I decided to revisit this game, I find that I still have an enjoyable experience nonetheless. Games and the story of their development are ones that I always find to be interesting, and this game is no different. Considering how I had the chance, I decided to go and ask one of the developers at StyLis Studios about such a thing, and I was actually lucky enough to get a response from the wonderful individuals at the team. This game has a lot of history behind it, so I wanted to include it in this video before going to discuss the gameplay and the sort. Phantom Forces didn't just start from anywhere. When Lito Zinnerman, the front-end programmer of the game, started his account back in the 21st of December in 2009, he was continuously changing his place from a random free model playground into something with more basic team fight scripts. When Shaylin007 created his account back in the 5th of December in 2008, he was mostly modeling and creating clothing items for Star Wars clans, and with that his modeling skills ramped up for a year before the introduction of Call of Roblox Year 5, and while the models in that game weren't, in his words, the best, it is where he started. At some point in 2010, the two met in either an early Modern Warfare game or an early Plane Wars game in Roblox, and from there, the two formed StyLis Studios, the capital S in the game standing for Shay, and the capital L standing for Lito. Before Phantom Forces became a thing, the two made a game called Call of Roblox Year 5, a World War II game taking inspiration from Call of Duty 5, World at War. Call of Roblox Year 5 was created in early 2011, where at the time both developers were in their early teens, still learning how to make games. Call of Roblox Year 5 is still up and, in their words, still somewhat playable, though in my experience, it's clearly showed otherwise. I'm not sure if this was an issue on my end or not, but I was on the screen you see here for quite some time. From there, we fast forward 2 to 3 years. Lito Zinnerman and Shay decided to branch out to a more modern setting with their games, thus initiating Project Phantom Forces, which was released on the 31st of August in 2015, and were in high school around the time of the game's creation. Around 2019, they took on the programmers Axis Angle and later Raspy_Pi, as well as the database wizard Semaphorism. The project took cues from games such as Battlefield 3, Call of Duty Ghosts, and Counter-Strike, but later decided to place an emphasis on extreme customization and a lot of guns. Ever since, StyLis Studios has been working on Phantom Forces, and as of right now, Lito Zinnerman is reworking the UI for the game and rewriting most of what made the game work for the last 6 years, and in their words, this will hopefully make room for content that was previously impossible to add due to shortcomings in planning ahead at the time of its creation. I found the story of this game's development to be interesting, because not only did it span across several years, it also details a lot of how the developers came to meet each other, and how the studio formed. Phantom Forces takes a lot of cues and inspirations from other titles, but maintains itself as a unique experience despite such inspiration. It places an emphasis on customization and guns, and I believe that this game has a lot of merits, and in this video I want to discuss Phantom Forces, the gameplay, its merits, my issues with it, and the possible suggestions I came up with for this game. I think that regardless, this game is amazing. So, with that said, let's discuss Phantom Forces. Phantom Forces on the surface is your typical first-person shooter game, primarily with the focus on the online multiplayer aspect a lot of them embodied at the time. One thing you're going to see is very prominent is that I'm not necessarily good at the game, but I feel as though despite the difficult learning curve, the game is very easy to enjoy for practically anyone. It does take time to adjust to things like reaction time and the sort when it comes to playing the game, but once you do, the game is fun to play. The game has a multitude of different maps to choose from, though how such a thing is decided is through that of voting. I like the way this game looks. The maps in this game look absolutely amazing with the different environments and times of day they're set in, and I think that the team did an amazing job creating them. The game feels very fast-paced to play, especially at times where there's a lot of foes to go up against. It feels very intense and the pace is quickened to account for the action-heavy moments in this game where you're doing such a thing. It feels nice to play. I like how you could be doing nothing but running around maps and the sort, the game would still be entertaining to play, due to how smooth the game controls and the animations that account for such a thing. I know this may seem like a trivial detail, but I really do appreciate how smooth the animations are in this game. Especially with the first person perspective, I feel as though the game does do a good job with the animations due to how smooth they are. I like how both aspects of the game being fast paced and the game having such smooth animations work together to create entertaining gameplay. The game itself is very dependent on your reaction time, especially when it comes to playing the game. Even when using the map, you will undoubtedly run into people that will surprise you, and whether you win that possible encounter is very dependent on your reaction time. Of course, this is nothing new with first person shooters in general, but I felt as though it was worth bringing up due to the fact that there were a lot of times where I was taken by surprise by enemies, and whether I came out alive was dependent on how long it took to react to them. Sometimes I'd come out the victor and other times I wouldn't. The reaction time needed for encounters also worked with the accuracy needed for such a thing. As you can tell, my accuracy wasn't necessarily what you'd call good, but this is mostly due to the fact that it does take time to adjust to the amount of such a thing needed. That and my accuracy was never good with these types of games in the first place. As mentioned in the introduction, this game has a heavy emphasis on guns and customizations. In my case, I found the gun I liked playing with the most and stuck with that for the most part. What I like about this heavy customization is that there is always something for everyone in this game. There's 4 classes, as well as the guns and other weapons which fall into their own respective categories, primarily the guns. I like this aspect of the game. It gives a lot to choose from, and it allows for those who want to experiment with guns to have a fun time doing so with the abundance of such a thing. And I feel as though StyLis does do a good job putting that quantity of customization into place. But the slight issue I have with this is the seemingly lack of emphasis the game places on such a thing. For me personally, the game doesn't necessarily put as much emphasis on the game's customization after you found the gun you like, leading to you only really playing with that specific gun. That aside though, I really do like the quantity of the customization aspect of the game. The one thing that could be improved is if the game found a way to emphasize said customization further. One thing I feel as though is worth bringing up is the minimap at the bottom left of the screen. With this, you're able to see your teammates as well as the surrounding enemies in their general position, as well as the direction they're going in should they decide to move. It's a very useful tool for determining where enemies are and where the hotspots are for when you're not bothered to run around looking for enemies. It also allows for you to stay away from possible fights as well, which makes this minimap generally a useful tool. Though if there was one thing I could bring up, it's that I do feel as though it'd help if the map was bigger or moved to someplace else on the screen. Or at the very least, you could customize where the UI is on the screen. As of right now in the game, most of the things that do tend to show vital information in the game is tucked away at the bottom of the screen, making it jarring when you're trying to search for enemies and you end up being killed by enemies you didn't see because of the fact that you were too focused on the map. It's difficult trying to navigate the map and play the game simultaneously, especially with the map being so small and inconveniently placed on the screen. When you're not keeping your eye on the map, it's difficult to find enemies. When you're focused on the map, you'd be killed by people you didn't know were there because you were too focused on the map. One thing I feel as though is good for combating this issue is giving us customizable options on where we want the map to be, where you could allow for us to see the entire map on the sword with the press and hold of a button. It would allow for us to quickly glance at the map while not being killed by enemies that we didn't expect, but also gives us a good way of seeing the information we need from the map with a glance and press of a button. Of course, it's worth also noting that this is just my opinion, and anyone is free to go about an issue akin to one like this in their own way. One thing I feel would also be a good improvement to this game is that of adding some sort of aspect to cater towards those who want to indulge in single player content or content that serves as being a break from the normal game. Something that allows for those who don't want to play the multiplayer aspect of the game as much can indulge in and still have a fun time. For example, incorporating something such as a story or something of that nature, building upon what may be established in the game. Of course, this would take time to implement, but to save time, there's a multitude of different maps that already exist in the game, although this is something that would only serve as a way to satisfy those who prefer single player games. I feel as though it would also be a good break from the normal online multiplayer, something people would be able to play and break away from that and come back when they feel ready. With that, I feel as though I've finished saying all I wanted to in regards to the gameplay, and now I want to discuss a few things I found interesting with this game. So, with that, let's discuss the extras. Over the duration of the creation of this video, one question occurred to me while gathering footage and playing through it. As many of you know, the team at StyLis Studios have been working on this game for over 5 years, with the game just passing its 7th anniversary not too long ago. So I simply asked the development team in regards to how they handle burnout on the sword, and surprisingly enough, a lot of people from the team did have something to say about it, and so I want to include it all here, because I find it interesting how they all have their different ways of handling such a thing, and I feel it serves as perhaps a good direction to take your mindset in if there are people who do suffer from burnout. Keep in mind I'm going to sum up a lot of the statements I got from the team in my own words, but I will show the actual response from each member of the team as I'm discussing each response. With that, Laito Zinnemann, who currently works as the front-end programmer of the game, stated that seeing a lot of the results of their products being shared with others helps them through such a thing. Burnout is always around the corner, and it's no secret that everyone is bound to feel it. And for that reason, they don't give themselves strict schedules to avoid such burnouts, which helps with removing any pressure to work when they don't want to. They also state that they would like to stop working on Phantom Forces and move on to working on another game, though they state at the moment they are hard blocked by other circumstances that make it seem as though Phantom Forces is the only thing that they can make progress on. Lastly, they state that the key motivator for them is seeing progress somewhere, especially visually. Shay, the creative director of the game, stated that for them, they like seeing positive feedback on what they make, and seeing the impact that their work has on other people. Axis Angle, the backend programmer, states that for them, having side projects to help them generate code and ideas that they can put back into the main project. Raspy_Pi, who works on the backend security as well as programming, states that Phantom Forces has had multiple people working on it over the years, and that the main developers do rarely step in to add content, with the exception being that of Shay. And lastly, Semaphorism, the database manager, stated that for them, the team meetings and encouragement helps them to recover from their burnout. Looking into all of this, I definitely did find it interesting to see how each member of the team that work on this game get through burnout, whether it be seeing the results of the things they make, the team elevating each other through such times of creative burnout, or working on side projects to generate ideas and code to put back into the main project. It definitely is very interesting to see. With that, I don't really have anything more to mention here, so with that, let's conclude things then. Phantom Forces is a great game. I feel that oftentimes it's very easy to see the game as a generic FPS game. And for the most part, you're not wrong. But this game genuinely does have a lot more to it. So many maps and customization options to explore, and genuinely so many great experiences to be had within this game. I think that visually, this game looks great, and I do think that the team did a great job with most of the maps I played for this video. A lot of the maps genuinely look stunning, and for that reason I commend the team on their work with this game. Another thing I feel is worth mentioning is the heavy weapon customization that the game has. And I think the game implements it well, but it doesn't do the second part of trying to sell and encourage the use of it. Once you find what you like, you find it very difficult to go out and branch out your reach in weapons, which ultimately defeats the purpose of having so much to choose from in the first place. Another thing I feel the game should look into taking a direction in is that of the single player mode. The game, as is, while definitely being a stellar game, can get very boring at times of a player consistently playing through that of the multiplayer mode. And for that reason, I definitely do think that the game should implement something that can act as a break from that. Something players can indulge in to break away and invest their time into something else in the game as opposed to playing the same mode over and over. Either way, I don't want to let my critiques overshadow the fact that I still think that this game is great, and I genuinely have a respect for it and those behind it. It's clear that a lot of work goes into it, whether that be the weapon customization, the visuals, or the gameplay and how smooth it is. This game is genuinely great. And to the team, if you're watching this, I and so many others respect your work and enjoy it greatly. And to Laito Zinnemann, I genuinely hope that one day you can branch out to other games like you said you wanted to, because I and so many others look forward to seeing your future work. So, there's the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. This is the first time I'm recording an outro after editing the video, so hello, post-editing me here. I just want to thank the team at StyLis Studios for their cooperation, especially to Dev or Liaison. I think that's how you say that name, I'm not sure. Sorry if I butchered any of your names throughout this video, by the way, just bear with me. I'm not sure when this video will be made public, but whenever you're watching it, I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want to follow me, then my socials would be linked in the description, as well as any afterthoughts or messages I may want to add. With that, I haven't really got much else I want to say, so I'll see you all in my next video. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening.